Obviously, this cover is not what we would consider ideal, but we have been burning in here frequently. We do have adequate sunlight penetrating in several areas. The problem here is that it's been too recent since the last disturbance, and we haven't really developed some of the cover. You can see this is foxtail responding. That's typically in the year of fire, and it's kind of already laying down before we would see hens choosing a nest. But if she did nest in here, this is pretty typical of what it would look like. You can see she's pretty well hidden, even if you kind of look around from her point of view. When we're measuring the structure, we would not only put the nuds board. Stop right here. This thing that you're looking at, we call that a nuds board. Some dude in the 70s with the last name Nuds decided that it was a good idea to paint a board in different sections and then estimate how much each section is covered. In other words, how much is visually obstructed by vegetation. This is a measurement of lateral cover in stands that we keep talking about being so important for nesting cover for turkeys. So if you want to measure it on your property, it's really easy. We just have a board like this. We go about 10 or 15 yards away from it. You need to standardize that. Kneel down to the height of a hen and look at that board. In this case, you can see the lower two squares have a little bit more visually obstructed. The higher ones don't have much. Ideally, we would see nearly 100% on the first 3 or 4 squares to have really high quality nesting cover. So you can see it's not adequate here in this example, but this is a way that you can simply evaluate it on your property. So stay tuned in this video, because we're also going to show you some examples of different quality cover, and we're going to show you some real nest from Osceola hens so you can visualize what those hens actually did. When we're measuring the structure, we would not only put the nuds board where she laid the nest and look at it from 10 meters out, but we would also look from her point of view, because her eyesight is her key predator defense, and we want to see how things look from her perspective. You can see here with a couple of shrubs, we'd have pretty decent structure overhead and also visual obstruction. Even though this cover in here isn't ideal, it's still hiding her pretty well. Okay, so we do see hens nest in places like this, and they often will do it at the base of a tree like that. And you can see, even compared to some of these other examples of nesting cover, this is particularly poor. Not only does she have no visual obstruction from overhead, she also has very little cover almost the entire range around her. Now, she can see well, so she probably would escape a predator if it was seen coming in, but she is a sitting duck right here. She has no concealment cover whatsoever. Not only that, when she hatches her poults, where is she going to go? Those little snacks are going to be walking through this completely exposed, and research has shown that they cannot make it very far through this. So we need adequate brooding cover nearby, and we just don't have it in this type of setting. This is a mixed pine hardwood stand. It has virtually no sunlight penetrating to the forest floor, nearly absent of a herbaceous layer at the ground level. Notice all of the hardwoods that are in the mid-story that's catching the majority of sunlight, and that's why we don't have any vegetation at the ground level, and that is what she needs. Vegetation developed, that lateral cover, ideally herbaceous dominated at the ground level. So you can see, based on our hen decoy here, what level that is. We're talking about vegetation that's less than waist high. Can be really effective at concealing her, and it's just absent in this type of stand. She is going to have a really hard time pulling off that nest. Virtually none of them make it, and the hen is also quite vulnerable herself. Unfortunately, these are the conditions that are widely available to hens across the South right now. Plus, it's tick infested. So you can see the cover in this stand is much more conducive to the hen hiding herself. And if you remember in a recent podcast that we talked about, the lateral cover in this stand is quite obstructive all the way up to about waist high. And in this case, the hen also has cover directly overhead. So when we have these combination of traits in the vegetation, this is more typical of where we would see high nesting success. And we have fields managed directly adjacent where she can get poults to those fields for high quality brooding cover. And this is the scenario where not only is she in much better situation to survive nesting, to complete the nest all the way to hatch, and to get her poults to that adjacent poult rearing cover. So really important. That can be accomplished in multiple ways. This, you can see there's a lot of sunlight getting into this stand. We're 1 year since fire, so we'll go through one more season before it'll get burned again. And we have some recently burned area directly adjacent that was burned in this season. That's going to produce that really high quality poult rearing cover directly adjacent to where she chose to nest. So there are a lot of great plants you can already see responding. We're a little bit early in nesting. This is early March. We're expecting nests to be on the ground here in about 2 or 3 weeks in this part of Florida. And we can already see some of the plant community responding. A lot of these herbaceous plants, we have small forbs, but also blackberry and some different shrubs and lots of these clump forming grasses. And when you put that combination of plants together here in about a month, this is going to be really high quality nesting cover and also a great place for her to forage and to take her poults through to get to that higher quality poult rearing cover.